So hello everyone, my name is Guillermo Piquer. I'm originally from Valencia, Spain, although I'm currently based in London. And today I'm going to present my research on the provenance-related applications of blockchain technology to enable circular economy in the construction industry. So the presentation agenda, I'll start briefly with an introduction. So why the statement of the problem and giving some context, and then I'll briefly introduce a bit of literature review, the methodology I undertook, and then I'll try to get into some detail in the short time there is for the preliminary results and some key findings and further research, potential further research as conclusion. So there are emergent technological paradigms in the construction industry that are bringing enhancements in terms of productivity, the operational efficiency, and the sustainable prosperity. However, the evolutionary transition is very stagnant, is very slow. And this hinders the progress towards the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So what is the problem? The problem becomes of high significance, essentially, with statistics such as the construction industry being the largest consumer of materials, around 40% of global resources being employed, also consumption of approximately 25 to 40% of global energy. So, and the potential solution is to transition from linear to circular economy models, right? And a problem with this solution is that there are strong barriers to the adoption of circular economy in the construction industry. So in terms of a solution to this problem, we can leverage from the technology implementation, such as blockchain, which overall brings transparency, traceability, efficiency, and trust. The circular economy concept is gaining incremental exposure in terms of the construction industry literature, and it brings many promising benefits to industry, such as environmental, social, political, and economic. And further, social gains arising from innovative sharing economies, so we transition from product ownership to product shared usage, and also new employment new employment opportunities due to business model alterations. However, still, there are dominant barriers hindering this adoption. So the main reason for this, the current state is basically constantly defined as unsatisfactory, inefficient, and unclearly defined. And the main reason for this is the industry fragmentation that we all know, the supply chain intricacies, and the inappropriate organization. So a bit on the provenance-related applications of blockchain. So this can enable strong material traceability, the identification of the most sustainable and efficient use of the reuse of resources, the transparency and accountability across all the products' whole life cycle, the prevention of unethical practices and false sustainability claims, greenwashing, and ensuring the verifiable compliance with regulations and standards. This is a model I developed, which I wish I had more time to go into further detail, but it basically blends circular economy theory with blockchain theory. So based on the constant transactions that would occur to remain, let's say, components, materials, or products into circularity. In terms of the blockchain adoption benefits, basically it's the efficient and traceable information exchange for components to trade them, reuse them, recycle them, and the reduction in inventory and operational costs, as well as increased efficiency and speed overall in industry, such as, for example, resource efficiency. As the greater data we have on these materials and these components, the more data-driven decision-making we can take. The methodology we undertook is an IPA, an interpretative phenomenological analysis, and the data collection was 6 semi-structured interviews with industry professionals and experts, and then a thematic approach for the data analysis with a 3-step coding method to identify, let's say, the main categories of the findings. The preliminary results, so the main barriers identified were established into categories, or categorized into financial and economic barriers, the political and regulatory barriers, organizational, social, technical, and knowledge barriers, as well as environmental barriers. The IPA findings have currently revealed 4 main aggregate dimensions as the preliminary results. So this is that great stagnant state that the circular economy finds itself in, and the notorious barriers. There's also the circular economy requirements and the necessary industry changes, as well as the blockchain provenance properties specifically tailored to each barrier, and how can they overcome these in order to enable the circular economy in the construction industry. And then as well, the blockchain adoption barriers. such as the strong skepticism there is, association with cryptocurrencies, the lack of regulations and standards. So this is the data structure of the IPA, the current data structure of the IPA. And then this is a preliminary conceptual framework that has been developed and regarding all the findings from the IPA. So it's based on 10 actions. It's inspired on a similar framework published by McKinsey, and it's based on 10 actions that would really and substantially help the adoption of circular economy in industry. We should educate, so we should promote, and this was also commented on a discussion yesterday, we should promote greater education and training in blockchain, so to avoid, for example, the labor shortage crisis that there was after the BIM mandate. We should also aim for a greater collaboration and for win-win scenarios in industry, so greater stakeholder integration. We should also promote a more holistic and open approach in terms of the culture. It's also very important that we prioritize the long-term vision and we avoid short-term gains. So we should put a greater focus on the long-term returns rather than the short-term gains, right? In terms of the profitability and the revenue in the long term that we can have. It entails a higher upfront investment. However, so the positive return on investment is substantially documented by literature there. We should also invest greater in research and development. Focus also very importantly on simplified technology. So this was also commented by previous presentations today. We should try to make the user experience as seamless as possible and not too complicated. Also considering the average age in the construction industry. So we should really simplify the technology, simple APIs, simple user experience. We should also engage with industry bodies as much as possible, standardize processes, promote the use of modern methods of construction and modularization, because what happens with modularization and modern methods of construction is that information is more standardized. And when information is more standardized, it's easier to document on the blockchain. And we should also try to increase the awareness on sustainable practices, as well as to navigate the regulatory challenges. So in conclusion, briefly, the main findings, so the six most common barriers for circular economy in the construction industry were identified. The IPA study revealed 4 aggregate dimensions, which are further categorized into 2 further hierarchies. And the conceptual framework for the managerial recommendation has been developed. I repeat, their preliminary findings. Hopefully they'll be finished throughout the end of the year. And these are potential avenues for further research. I really want to emphasize the first one, so the real world applications of literature and their outcomes. I have this feeling that there's a lot of literature on technology, on sustainable practices, and on the construction industry, but there's a lack, especially on blockchain, of pilot projects. There's a lack of use cases. There's a lack of entrepreneurship in terms of trying to apply that knowledge gained from academia into industry. And of course, it's difficult. However, we should really try to emphasize the real world applications of literature. Then also the effectiveness of educational initiatives to promote an understanding and adoption of blockchain and the circular economy principles, the evolving regulatory landscapes and the implication that these have for the linear to circular transition in the construction industry. And finally, maybe the eco-lifespan framework would also benefit, as always, from validation studies. Thank you very much for listening. Thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure to be here in Hong Kong. And if you have any further questions, as we're short on time, we'll probably have them in the discussion panel. So thank you. Thank you very much.